Yeah, hi. So sorry it took a long time for me to finish up my video. So I think I left off at elementary, having problems with elementary, being institutionalized, being diagnosed with ADHD, with all these things. But I would say that for a separate video on the side effects and how I felt being so young, on all these ADHD medications and stuff like that. Um, But yeah, so I eventually grew up with my first foster mom, and the system is to the point where if a child gets to a certain age, they really push for the child to be adopted. So at the age of 9, I eventually um, was open for adoption. So they began to look for people for to adopt me, and I got adopted by this couple. I did a couple of meet and greets. They took me shopping, told me about their family, spent weekends with them. So eventually I ended up staying. So, my adopted dad was in the military, and my adopted mother wasn't working at the time. She was a stay-at-home mom, and they only had one child. But if I'm not mistaken, I think she was having a hard time having a second. She really wanted the girl, so they eventually adopted me. But yeah. But before the adoption was actually finalized, this is a trigger warning for the people who have experienced sexual abuse or neglect. So if you are very traumatized or working with overcoming these issues, I'm sorry, this might not be the video for you. But yeah, so I eventually I um eventually the touching started, but at first I thought it was just him overly loving on me. But as a father should, but then eventually I realized that it was starting to get more and more uncomfortable. When I realized that he was basically really just grooming me. And then one night, it eventually got to the point where he got so drunk that he ended up laying in the bed with me, touching me. So my adopted mother did find him, and she just basically blamed on his drinking, told me to lock the door, and I guess I don't know if she, talked to him about it. I don't know. I can't really remember the details on that. But I do know that he continued with the touching, and so eventually I got adopted, thinking that well maybe this just his drinking, maybe he'll change, maybe he'll stop. Eventually did go to eventually I did go to the court, and I did get finalized for adoption with them. So somewhere in between there, me getting adopted, my aunt, which was my adopted mother's sister, uh, wanted to adopt too. So she eventually convinced her to let them keep me for a whole summer. And then my adopted brother came down the other half of the summer. So I was having a good time. Um, then one day, my adopted family came down. I think it was like for a cookout or something, a family get together. We were celebrating something, I can't remember. But I walked outside, and basically both of the men were talking. They just stopped and they looked at me like fresh meat. You know that look when you walk into a room when you know somebody's talking about you? Yeah. That's exactly the look that they gave me, but they didn't say anything. They just looked at me. And then later on that night, he was like, "Can I show you something? But you got to promise that you can't tell." So eventually, I was like, "Okay." I thought maybe it was just like a grown-up movie or something, but it was something. It was more than that. It was like very X-rated stuff that little kids should not be watching. And then so I think I was like 10 at the time. Was I 10 or 11 at the time? But yeah. So then I was like, okay. So I um So later on that night, so then he eventually did some mouth stuff to me. I'm just put it like that because I don't know if the little kids watching me or not. So he did some mouth stuff to me, and then so I was like, I don't want to, I was feeling really uncomfortable. Eventually, I just let it go and I went to sleep. Then he came and got in bed with me, was trying to rape. He was trying to rape me basically, and then so I was like, no, I yelled out, and my aunt was like, I yelled out or whatever. I didn't know at the time that my aunt heard me. And then he was like, well, let's pray, ask the Lord for forgiveness. So I got my knees, I prayed. So then my aunt was like, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, everything's fine.